Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Raul Hernandez Ochoa. He's the founder of Do Good Work. They are at dogoodwork.io. Do Good Work is a digital growth consulting practice, and they help bootstrapped digital businesses achieve profitable growth. And we're going to find out today all about how to transform your business into a scalable machine, how to design and optimize a high profit digital marketing agency, and so much more. All sorts of fun stories and lessons to share, I'm sure. And so, nice talking to you, Raul.
Thanks, Robert. That's a lot to jam in.
It is, and we'd like to just give people a big bunch of randomness and leave them wanting more. So how would you describe yourself? What's sort of the elevator pitch? What's your current passion and focus?
So, I just focus on growth for bootstrap founders. I love the marketing and sales aspect, but also tying that to the mission and product alignment to actually create a change in the market that you're serving.
And where do you see these businesses being stuck? Is it a lot of chaos? Do they have bottlenecks? Where do they need your help? Where do you come in?
I think it's a twofold approach. Sometimes they're either stuck in their own growth and identifying what are they actually growing and designing their actual business from the ground up. What are the marketing and sales activities that need to be unlocked? What are the operational bottlenecks that need to be removed? How do you align that to the actual mission of the company? So it's a lot of design work in the beginning. But once you're actually cranking, running, you're moving really fast, you're usually in the middle of everything. So it's around what type of team do you hire? How do you build the operations that can run without you? How do you create a machine through the business setup? So those are the two major areas: stuck in lack of clarity and then stuck in the doing.
And some of these keywords that you're mentioning, like you mentioned things like unlocking this growth, it seems like these companies that you come across, they're already doing a lot of things right. They just maybe need to adjust a little bit or figure out, after all the things that all the activities they've been performing, what to do more of, what to do less of.
Yeah, I'll give you a real example. So I only talk or teach about things I've done or have done, like not theory. One of my guys, he's running a profitable shop, probably like 5 to 6 people, but he's doing everything, and he's behind on messaging. He's behind on his life. He's behind on pretty much keeping up to date because he's doing quite a bit. So he's able to take action, get the results, get the revenue that looks nice on paper, but his life, if you look at his calendar, it's not what he desires. So how do you remove him from the equation, still double or even triple revenue, while he has more time, or in this case can be anyone, but have more time to focus on your health, your family, and the business, not just everything in the business.
That's the dream, right? That's what everyone wants to figure out, is how to remove themselves. That way they can just focus on what they're good at, what's fun. The personal life improves, the revenue improves, everything works great. And that seems like a great place to be, because intuitively, you always have that kind of scarcity mindset if you don't rise above it, right? You think that, well, if I want to have a business that runs itself, that doesn't need me, then what do I have to give up? What do I have to sacrifice? And so how do we overcome that? How do we go from having a business that's just okay to a business that's amazing, but without any of the downside that our pessimistic minds tend to expect?
Well, I think there's always going to be a quote unquote downside, not like it's a negative thing. I think there's always going to be difficulty. It's like saying, how do I gain muscle without working out? Like, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to go in and like do a little heavy lifting. That's part of the game, and it's fun. I think the key is tying it back to developing into the type of leader and the type of putting the right goggles on or the right glasses on to look at your business in different lenses through different stages. What works to get to your first million is not the same. In particular, how you're looking at your business, if you're trying to scale that to 70 people and 30 million above. Having seen teams and work with teams at all those different levels, there's very specific nuances to focus on to get through each stage. So I think it's less around what should I be doing, because the what is well documented, it's online, we can all access it. It's more about how are you looking at the business differently and being okay with letting go of control, being okay with understanding what your team needs, being okay to become a coach for others around you so that they can become more effective, and you lean into the quote unquote boring stuff, building systems and operations, selling whenever you like need to sell, but only focusing on the key like focal areas of the business. So it's more about repositioning you in your frame of mind, looking at your business And then from there, the actual tactical stuff, what to build, who to hire, how to build, etc.
So you're saying embrace difficulty because all the work and the boringness and the documentation and the readjusting, that's just inevitable. That's something that will have to happen. So it seems like you're saying the key is to do that in a way where it can get done, where you enjoy it, you complete it, you have the kind of the help that you need to get from your team. And it seems like it requires like a mindset shift. You're talking about these things like leadership, letting go, having your team do it. You mentioned a few times about being okay with this, being okay with that, right? Being okay with the company that runs without you, that grows into this direction. And so that seems easier said than done, right? It's like back to the working out analogy, right? Oh, if only I could just go and put this time in the gym and do these exercises. But then many people start with the best of intentions and fail. So how do we tap into this mindset shift and all this leadership ideas, especially because it seems sometimes really intangible, right? To be a better leader. Well, what does that mean? How do I get there? So how do we get there?
That's a really good question. And I think it's all around focusing on the journey. And one of the things that I always talk if I'm on stage or on pods like this is that your journey determines the destination. Sometimes we say, this is my destination. I want to hit X amount of revenue, work X, like that's great. But that shouldn't be the end all be all, because you can sacrifice health, life, revenue, other people, et cetera, to reach that number. And sometimes that's not what you wanted. The goal is, how do I optimize and adjust for the journey? So when you're talking about mindset shifts and opportunities, look at the momentum that you need to start making today and make the momentum the habit and your place of like, this is where I'm going to be focusing on every day. If I did this correctly today, if I made progress in building the business, building the team, and creating something new, like those are the simple habits or relationships, got to be something new. Focusing on those small things every day consistently over time in alignment to your goals will help you reach your goals, because every goal is achievable. That's something that you don't hear all the time. It's not just a dream. It can be done into actuality. So changing it from here's my dream to here's what I'm working on to building, and it's already being built. That's the first shift. The second shift is focusing on the consistency, day in and day out, Monday through Friday or Saturday if you like that extra day of work. Just taking a small bit of action, maybe an hour, 90 minutes a day. What am I building towards the business today? How am I achieving that? And when you're looking at if I'm becoming a better leader or if I'm optimizing my own day, my own life, or I'm leading my team to grow, it's really taking a self-analysis of what type of company culture you're creating, because usually for small businesses, the culture is a reflection of who you are. And doing a self-reflection, what are the values that I have personally? How do I want others in my team to be treated? How do I want our clients to be treated? And how am I going to communicate that with the team? And how am I going to act that out with the team through my verbal, nonverbal communications, through my emails that I sent out, through the documentations that we have? And being intentional with what you do and what you say. Not to say that you have to always have the spotlight on you or be nervous to screw up, but just being cognizant. Just like where early on in my entrepreneurial career, a mentor told me that you can't use social media like everyone else does. Like you can't use your own social to just post like, here's what I'm eating today. Sure, you can do that, but that doesn't add value to your audience. Just how you're more cognizant of how you post on social, what you say with your brand. Same thing with your team. You can't just speak whatever you feel that moment if it's not going to be effective to support the other person listening to you. So it's just being intentional with how you're approaching your days, how you're approaching your team, and compounding the effects and then focusing on the right activities. And we can dive into the activities that matter most when you're trying to scale.
Let's do that, because so you're mentioning so far, just to make sure I'm keeping up with the kind of my own recapping and following along. You're talking about momentum and building habits and kind of doing this repeat awareness examination of yourself and your values and what the future will look like, and then connecting that back to your communication with the emails you send and the social posts that you put out there. And you also mentioned about like kind of blocking out the time and being acting with intentionality and not just expecting these things to happen, not just expecting these goals to fall into place, but actually like putting in the work and doing those activities and putting in the time to make it happen. And so when you're mentioning about these activities that need to be done, I mean, let's unpack that. I mean, what activities do you prefer, and what do you help people out as far as when they say, like, I need kind of this things to be more organized, things to be more intentional? What are the activities to be done?
So for every business, and I like to dive back into your end outcome is a number or it's a metric, but you can design that backwards to identify what are the habits. Just how like our lives as a human, we are comprised a lot of our habits, positive or negative. It got you where you are right now. The company also has its own habits, but the cool thing about the habits about the company, it's something you can do personally, or someone else on your team, or a machine. So you can identify what are the most important habits based on the metrics that matter most for my company, who is doing them, and from there, creating a system around those core habits. When it comes to what are the important habits, I think it's important for us to focusing on marketing and sales. So client acquisition, lead generation. Those are the two most important on that front. What activities work for you and your market and your audience? How are you pitching? How are you selling? How are you presenting? How are you differentiating in value? Tying that back to your messaging, tying that back to your thought leadership, tying that back to your sales process, your pitching process. From there, when you have a new client, how are you fulfilling? The second phase or the second area of habits are fulfillments. How does the team onboard? How does the team communicate? How does the client feel? How are you intentionally crafting an experience? And does your product fulfill on that promise that you made in the marketing? So identifying what are the habits we're doing there. And then finally, for administrative habits for your company, what are you doing for finances, team personnel, fun? Like we should have communication and at least enjoy the people we work with because it's part of the journey. So what are you be doing intentionally to keep the business healthy, finance, HR, admin work, as well as keep the team happy? And if you look at those three phases of the company and you build out the right habits, either you do personally, someone else on your team, or a machine, you start creating momentum in a cycle. You can start identifying what's working, what's not working, and then knowing where to fine tune when things are not working. And if you look at that holistic part of the business, then it becomes it's more doable. It's less ambiguity of what am I supposed to be doing. More so like, oh, the business is like a machine, and then I just nurture it in the right way, it's going to grow.
Amazing and awesome too. So basically, it seems like it comes down to detaching the person from the work that's done, right? Because it's so easy to say, like, well, I do all these tasks, or I have someone that they have all these responsibilities, but then it reminds me of like with the E-Myth when they say like have a bunch of note cards, right? And then one person might have like these 5 or 6 things, and you can pull some of the note cards aside and say, well, we can automate this task, or we can reassign this to this other person. And by kind of having the job roles instead of the people, then you can kind of like rearrange the pieces on the board there. And then also that's helpful to think of it in terms of those 3 buckets that you mentioned, like the marketing and sales, and then the kind of the fulfillment and onboarding, and then kind of like the operations and HR basically. So that way, instead of having all this complexity and saying there's like 37 pieces of my business, you have these 3 buckets, and it can be like, well, which one am I improving, or which process am I kind of looking at again, or like, what can we sort of work on today? And so you mentioned that you're a speaker and a podcaster, and the fun part of that is hearing about the stories, and specifically about the failures and the difficulties and the really like raw personal stuff. So do you have anything to share with us about your own kind of like, struggles or past pain?
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're going there. Interesting. In terms of past struggle or pain, I mean, depends how far back. I think the most relevant, the most recent is the fact that success needs to have failure. That failure is a prerequisite for you to achieve a level of success. And failure, not in the sense that you give up and fall and like it's over, but failure that you have to go through the struggle. I think for me, I was helping a team, and there were issues with the marketing funnel. There were issues with KPIs. There were headwinds in the marketplace. And this is not an excuse. It's just matter of fact. Even to this day, like maybe 6 or 8 months after, they're still having the same issues. So it's not a person issue, but I was the leader there. And it was very difficult because I took it upon myself like, oh, crap, this is a reflection of who I am. And there's a huge team let's like looking up to our work together, and things aren't improving. When in reality, it was more of the offer and the market and the change in consumer dynamics were an issue. But going through that was more of a mental issue, more of a not to say that it's not to highlight the mental health, but perception, self-identity doubts, like am I actually good at what I do? But with the track record, you still forget that you're good at what you do. So I think that was the biggest hurdle to go over. Um, and that's probably the most raw or transparent I've been on a pod. So, I mean, if you have any questions around that.
No questions. I don't want to get you too embarrassed, but I am glad and humbled that I have the honor of you're the most vulnerable on a pod to date. And what comes to mind from when you mentioned that is that the tendency, like you said, is to avoid failure. And from hearing about your story, there's like good and bad failure, right? Mm-hmm. Good failure is in taking the risks, in adjusting and getting the data you need to pivot or realize like a project's hit a dead end. And then the bad failure is like you mentioned about giving up or in trying to avoid the failure in the first place. And so I think that's how that hit home for me is that you shouldn't avoid all failure. There are for sure types of failure to avoid, but then failures that prerequisite for success. You figure out where you need to go and you get ugly early, as they say, and you kind of debug the system and troubleshoot and all that sort of stuff. And so as we're approaching near the end of our conversation here, what has surprised you about your journey? Like you're raw and authentic here, and you like to talk about dealing with people and building things. But what was a shock to you in these past years?
I think the more that it's interesting, a shock to me in these past years, that the thing I was trying to move away from was the thing that I was being attracted towards, or that people were seeking me out for, which was interesting. Like I grew up in the direct response marketing world. I've done pretty cool stuff and worked on some pretty interesting projects, well-known names, et cetera, behind the scenes. And I was like, okay, cool. Let me try to figure out something else on another journey. But the more that I went in that journey, the more I get pulled in. Hey, can you help me with this? Hey, I'm looking to grow. Hey, what does this look like? And to be honest with you, the lack of sophistication and integrity in that industry really highlights and shows that a lot of people do still need this help. So that was an interesting shock to me. It's like interesting, the thing that I developed and the skill set that I've developed and have not been leveraging as much is what people are seeking out for the most now.
That's interesting. That seems like a fun discovery process of just trying to be one thing and trying to go in this direction, but being pulled back into something where you're really needed, where you really shine. And it keeps life interesting, right? If you said, I want to go over to this goal over here, and life was just a straight line journey to that thing, I mean, how dull and bland would that be? It's more fun to have the ups and the downs and the excitement and all the unexpectedness that happens with it. And so as we're really about to wrap up our conversation, it's always fun to put my guest on the spot, and especially like you do all your speaking and podcasting. I like to ask about if you have ever thought about what advice you wish you'd gotten 20 years ago. It's always fun to hear about like something simple and how things could have changed. So what advice do you wish you'd received 20 years ago?
20 years ago, read 5 books a month and connect with one person a week, either in person or over the phone.
I like that. And that ties right back into your branding of having the KPIs, the goals, the metrics. So you're saying read 5 books a month and then connect with, did you say one person per week?
Yeah, one person per week. At least make one new connection in alignment to where you want to go.
And I think that's very doable. And I'm sure like that sort of recurring process is slow and frustrating at first, but then as you kind of grow your circle and you kind of get to know the names in your space connected to your future goals, and you can be like, you see the same names again and again, you make the connections, and this person can introduce you into that. And I think that's a very noble goal and something that's very doable for us to get to where we want to go. And speaking of people getting to where they want to go, this is not a free show, right? You're not just here for your health. You're here to say, I'm impressing this audience with my insights and with my ahas. But then now the other end of things is to go to a call to action, to go to our website. So can you tell us about your company, dogoodwork.io, and what the next step is after someone watches or listens to this podcast?
The next best step is to get more free information. Go to dogoodwork.io/MOTD for marketer of the day. You'll get access to the book for free, articles that I think would be useful for you, and just additional resources for you to take action in.
Fantastic. And so that's how this podcasting thing works, right? Someone gets a taste of the good stuff and they say, I was really impressed with what Raul had to say. And now that I want to get more of this kind of entrepreneurial and agency and business building and mindset and growth advice, the next logical step, the very next thing to do is to go to dogoodwork.io/MOTD. That way you can be on your path to doing all those things that Raul talked about, of reading those 5 books a month, connecting with that one person per week, of setting those goals, of delegating things to your team, of being a good leader, of being a happier person and not use your business to sacrifice your personal life, and all those things, because time is limited. You never know how much time you have left on this planet. It's good to make mistakes, but it's not good to make unavoidable mistakes. And it helps to have that support system of people who can share with you about their past history and help you where you need to go. And Raul is the person to do that. And your job at this point is to go to dogoodwork.io/MOTD to get those free resources, including the book. And we will see you there. And thank you, Raul, for being a super cool person, giving us all these helpful advice. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Robert. Thank you for having me on.